There is a small moment in Ted Lasso episode 5 that is possibly my favourite thing of the series so far. Not just because it's a great moment in itself, but because it knits so much of the episodes and the series theme together so perfectly, and we need to talk about it, or I need to talk about it so I don't explode. You can take a moment if you want to try and guess what the moment is, because we first have to set up the context. It is important to do this first, which is the character Nathan Shelley. A character I've talked about a lot, yes, who has been in a difficult place of really needing to believe in himself, that he isn't worthless and invisible, but someone meaningful who has earned his job, that he does deserve to be a manager, to be loved, to be heard. I know this is simplifying it. I've talked more detail in the past if you're interested, but stick with me here. In season 1, Nate struggled to believe in himself at all until Ted came along. Ted believed in him, showed him he was memorable.
You remember my name?
That he and his opinions mattered, and it felt amazing, uplifting, but he somewhat depended on Ted for that because he wasn't used to feeling like he mattered. And so he was needing a lot of reassurance that Ted still believed in him, that Nate still deserved it, but Ted took his foot off the pedal there. He helped build Nate up and then started seeing Nate more like an equal, showing less of the encouragement and reassurance than he originally did, and to Nate that felt like he'd been abandoned.
You made me feel like I was the most important person in the whole world. And then you abandoned me.
That was how we interpreted it. You know, part of how we learn self-belief is through the experiences of others believing in you, giving you time and empathy and thought, but it isn't straightforward either. It can still be a long and difficult journey. As a result, Nate ended up feeling abandoned, among other things. That's not the only motive behind his reaction against Ted. But feeling abandoned, he then sought other avenues. He looked for gratification through social media and being the big famous man who can walk into restaurants or bars, and obviously through the enticing manipulations of Rupert, Nate was particularly susceptible to him. And the point is, Nate has grown there. Season 2 wasn't exclusively bad for him. It wasn't a villain arc, even if it sort of was. And now season 3, he's killing it at West Ham. There's still a lot of the season to go, and I am certain something is going to go wrong, and who will be there for him when that does happen is crucial, but still, he is doing brilliantly on his own. He is proving that he has earned this job, that he is good enough. It wasn't the pitiful charity of Rupert to give him the job the way he gave him that car. And even if you do see it as a weakness that Nate got suckered in by Rupert at all, he was still offered one hell of a job that not anyone could pull off, and so far he is excelling. But more importantly this, the Nate of season 3, and possibly even season 2, is far less vulnerable to the manipulations of someone like Rupert than season 1 Nathan would have been. Not perfect, no, but we saw during episode 4 Nate kind of noticing what Rupert's about. When Nate calls him Mr. Mannion.
Oh, no, please, Nathan, call me Rupert.
And then when he does call him Rupert, later he is told
Mr. Mannion.
And then again he calls him Mr. Mannion, and the response is
Please, Nathan. Rupert.
I would bet my house, if I actually owned one, that season 1 Nate would have heard that and gone, yes, I'm so sorry, stupid me. I'm willing to bet Nate would have beat himself up and invented reasons to explain this, going, Mr. Mannion probably only wants to be called Rupert in specific settings, I must not have picked up on that properly, stupid me, I've made a fool of myself, that kind of thing. But season 3 Nate is not beating himself up, he's stopping and he's thinking, hang on, is he messing with me here? This isn't right. And he's seeing Rupert with the PA, and he doesn't like it. He disapproves of that. You know, he does work for Rupert. Of course he took a job managing West Ham, especially when they're supposed to be, like, one of the biggest teams in this version of the Premier League, but he's also thinking for himself. He's not being drawn into Rupert's way of thinking. Something that is at least partly tied to finding more belief in himself. It sounds a weird way to put it, but sticking up for himself, sticking up for what he thinks and his own morals, rather than letting Rupert's worldview take over. As I mentioned in my last video, it was horrible the way he spoke to Ted, and his anger came out in destructive ways there, but also there is the positive that he was actually sticking up for himself, thinking, yeah, I've got these grievances and they deserve to be heard, I'm going to voice them. You know, he doesn't voice them to the right person and they are too destructive in the way they're voiced, but the positive is also there. And that is where we finally get to this episode. Are you ready for this? Nate the Great has a date with celebrity model Anastasia, and so they go to Nate's favourite restaurant, and there is at least a slight air of him getting to flex in front of Jade, who has previously made him feel small and invisible, but they sit down to eat, and Anastasia hates the restaurant. The vibe is wrong.
But just wait till you try the food, because the baklava is divine.
Then the food looks too ugly to post on Instagram for her followers.
Okay, well, the good news is it tastes a lot better than it looks.
This is not Nathan going, oh, yep, I'm so sorry, you're absolutely right, this place is awful, what was I thinking? But no, my opinion means something. This place matters to me. He has her try a bit of food. Although, still, it's not enough.
Can we please leave? I mean, the food is yummy, but just so dumpy and sad.
And Nate says, no, we are not leaving. Of course we're not. It'd be incredibly rude. And again, this place matters to me. Bringing you here was showing a little bit of who I am as a person.
Okay, look, I know it might not exactly be cool. This place is important to me.
It's quite touching how he explains that his family celebrates all their birthdays here and how he came here after his promotion.
Every important event in our lives has been spent here. And to me, that makes this place even better than cool.
I saw this and just loudly said to my TV, like an idiot, good for you, Nate. Good for you voicing your feelings. That is a massive step forwards for him. I think so much of the discussion around Nate is talked about him earning a redemption, but I think it's important to notice and celebrate the actual positive growth beyond just this idea of redemption. And you know, it might surprise you to know I've never been on a date with a celebrity model, but I think many people would be a bit nervy and possibly give in to what she wants out of an eagerness to impress, but Nate doesn't do that. Not that Anastasia listens, she's messaging on a phone when Nate speaks, and I do think they've played up her character a little too much. She doesn't need to be quite so stereotypically self-centered, but either way, she now has no interest and she leaves, which is the second bit of growth. I think most people would feel very rejected when your date walks out on you. I mean, part of Nate feels that, of course it stings, and you wonder if you did something wrong. But even so, he's not chasing after her or beating himself up. Stupid me, I shouldn't have taken her here. Clearly I'm a pathetic loser that's not worth her time. Instead, there's the sense that she isn't right for him. And she's not. She clearly has no interest in who Nate is as an actual person, therefore a relationship isn't going to work. He is more than just his image as a football manager, you know. Who he is beyond the image matters. And in fact, being seen for more than just his image is exactly the thing Nate is going to need most of all this season. He ends up having a nice time with Jade instead, which I am conflicted about because she's treated him badly in the past. Why the sudden switch here? I'm waiting to see a little more before I make any judgments there, but I do love how she affectionately mocks him and how Nate takes that in his stride rather than it denting his esteem.
After all, our baklava is divine.
Yeah,
Here's the big thing I want to say though, the bit that ties everything together. It's two things technically. One is belief, the other is rejection. This episode we've kind of seen 3 rejections. Keeley fires Shandy from work, who very much takes it badly. As discussed, Anastasia walks out on a date with Nate the Great before they even ate. and Zafer leaves the team, which might not technically be a rejection, but it's gonna feel like it. There they are, needing their best player for a massive game, and he just leaves and doesn't even explain until later without a proper goodbye. Shandy is an example of when rejection goes badly. I wish we knew more about her as an actual person rather than just the comedy side of her persona, because we don't know much depth about why this hits her so particularly hard. Nate is the example of when rejection goes well, when someone not wanting to stay with you doesn't mean you're worthless and useless, doesn't mean you're not good enough for them, that it's okay and it can even be a good thing.
Zafer is gone. And you know what? I think it's a good thing.
And then the Zafer example, I think, is the concluding point. It all feels hopeless for the team without Zafer until Ted tells them they don't need him to believe. Cue the sign breaking. Cue Ted's then ripping up the sign even more, because getting belief externally, this symbol, Zafer as this figure they depend on for their belief, this sign they need as that symbol in order to believe. No. Instead, it all needs to come from within, a belief in who each of them are as people, as individuals. individuals in how they can trust each other and be a united squad. I think they lost a lot of that with Zafer because they became disciples to him more than confident in their own beliefs and abilities.
If the boys are gonna fucking stand around watching fucking Zafer all fucking match, we should make them buy fucking ticket.
And in that sense, yeah, it could become a good thing that Zafer's gone. Obviously they're going to miss his talent, there is a disadvantage, but like Anastasia, he wasn't right for this squad. This story is like a nice little, I think microcosm is the word, because in a grander sense they originally depended on that believe sign, and now hopefully they won't need it anymore. Nate originally depended on Ted for belief, but now he doesn't anymore. Hopefully when or if he repairs things with Ted, Nate will now feel like an equal to him rather than just Ted seeing it that way. In that sense we see a story of needing others' belief in order to believe in themselves, and then slowly, despite how rocky it is in places and up and down, starting to properly find that belief internally. Yeah, maybe it's not a massively profound point and I might have rushed this, I don't know, but it is still important, and it's very satisfying how well not just this episode explores all of that, but also how well it knits together some of the core themes we've seen across this show as a whole.
Belief doesn't just happen because you hang something up on a wall. All right? Comes from in here, you know? And up here, down here. Only problem is we all got so much junk floating through us. A lot of times we end up getting in our own way. Envy or fear, shame. I don't want to mess around with that shit anymore. You know what I mean?
That's what I wanted to say today. Now, you say things in the comments. Tell me things. Like the video, subscribe for more, maybe even support me on Patreon if you fancy, but otherwise, hopefully see you next time. And as ever, a special thank you goes to Luke Core, Tree Chukaba, Michael Gallagher, In Squares, Flying Spider, Samara Salsi, Joshua C. Follier, and Jab Bramwell. Thank you.